Hi, my name is Drew. I'm here recording my AFAM final, and I wanted to do it in video form because I am creative to an extent, but I felt like the poster might have been a little more challenging for me, so I was like, ooh, let me talk on camera. Also, I didn't wear this specifically because I was going to be on camera. I just like clothes a lot. So, I'm gonna get started. I have a few questions to answer. They're on my phone. I wrote them out, and I'm gonna, yes. So the first question I have to answer is, what does African American Studies mean to me? So to me, it's a discipline that's meant to teach you about struggles and triumph and the experiences of people in the African diaspora. And sure, we can try to look at records or handwritten accounts or things that have been printed, but really it's a field of study that I think is more about human experience. And I know that sometimes we also look at journals or watch lectures and all that sort of thing. And I do think that is helpful. I'm not saying that it's not, but I also think that learning from people is probably the best way to get this sort of information, because unlike STEM where you sit in a lab maybe, or you can do research, or I guess technically you could be in a lab if you're studying health in regards to race, but I think this is more of a place where you have to interact with people and learn their stories and learn what customs or ideas, traditions may have been passed down through their family as far back as we can go, because we know sometimes records were not kept. But as I was saying, I think it's something that we need to hear from other generations, because they may have been closer to the people that were the first African Americans. I also think learning about migration specifically, as well as people's reasons for moving, because I know we talked a little bit about after Reconstruction and how people shifted across the country. I also think that's a very important part of African American studies, and I understand why we focus on slavery. It was a huge 100 years long thing that happened. I get that. But at the same time, I also think that should be something that we focus on a little more. Once people got here, the fact that they moved away and started their own lives, sometimes their own businesses, started families in other places, and that's why now we have this cross-continental world that we do. The second question is, what is my greatest takeaway from this course? I would say my greatest takeaway is that history isn't linear. The last module I read about two opposing slave narratives, and while those things were happening in the same century at approximately the same time, they developed differently. And so that was a way for me to remember that while things may be going on at the same time, there's a whole laundry list of things that are happening at the same time. And I also got that sense from when we watched Ethnic Notions. With some of the stereotypes, some of them were more prevalent in the South and some of them were more prevalent in the North. And I think sometimes I forget that racism was alive and well in the northern United States and out west. So being able to see all of these different stereotypes were being created at the same time kind of helps me remember that even though this one thing is what we're learning about in history, that's not the only thing that was happening. Because sometimes I tend to, because of the way they teach history in school, I tend to forget that, this is happening, and this is also happening, this is also happening. If that makes sense. I'm not sure, but yeah. And I also think my takeaway is that because history isn't linear, I do think we should teach it in a different way, because I know, especially in elementary school, they kind of just tell you slavery, and then there's a whole multiple parts of history they don't talk about. And then they're like, Martin Luther King Jr., a person that he got shot. Like, that's about how that goes. And I wish, I mean, obviously I understand that there's only so much that small children can comprehend, but I definitely think maybe that trying to fill in those holes so that when you do grow up to possibly be however old, I'm 20, to be a 20-year-old, you realize that all of these things were happening in history and were at the same time, instead of being like, what is this massive gap of things that I never learned about, and like sitting there in school one day and being like, whoa, I never knew that, no one ever taught me that, you know? So I think being more open to filling in those gaps is something that I took away, because some of these things I learned on the internet, and some of these things I did learn in this class. So just being able to like fill in gaps that I had was really helpful, and I wish that our education system was set up in a way that could happen for other people, and they wouldn't have to wait till they're 20 years old to learn these things. And I definitely think it helped me like learn about my Blackness as opposed to how other people experience theirs. The most significant lesson I learned in this course, that's the third question, would be the origins of our specific campus at USC. So I know that we did that whole reading of that website that was about slavery here on campus and how that started. I obviously, in my mind, I knew that slaves built this campus, slaves built everything at the time that this campus was built, but I think what I didn't know really was who they were, where they came from. I mean, they might not have necessarily known that either, because like I said, records are not kept. But to just gloss over that kind of bothers me. I mean, I know they put that plaque up outside, and that's great, but like, to not have really known even that slave quarter was there on the horseshoe is something that, like, as me being a black person walking around all the time, going through the horseshoe 10 trillion times, because I'm a junior, I've been here for 3 years, I've walked everywhere on this campus. So to not know that possibly someone that I could have been related to was sitting here laying the foundation for the school that I go to now bothers me. And I wish we would have more conversations about that, maybe like a lecture about it, maybe some like specific learning on who those people were, who they belonged to, possibly where they came from, even though I know that would be hard information to find. I definitely think it's something that would be worthwhile. I also think that yes, plaque, cool, good, but I think maybe vigils for the people who may have been enslaved and worked on this campus, and to know that they did so much, such as like cooking food, cleaning, obviously like brickwork, gardening, all that sort of thing. I was never told that. I just had to read it on a website, which I feel like that's something that they should not necessarily introduce when you're applying, but maybe something they should teach you freshman year. I wish there was a way we could make people take history of South Carolina or of this campus as a class. I probably can't be the one to make that happen, but I wish that I could. The fourth question that I have here is, how has this course impacted me as an African American student and understanding the experience of African American students? Like I said before, this course kind of made me reevaluate my own blackness and think about it, and the way that laws, decisions have impacted generations of people. I know that when we did, I can't remember if it was the first or the second module, but we looked at that map of Africa and we had to take a quiz about it, and like being able to see all the different regions and what's special and important about each one of those was really important for me. Not necessarily because I know where my ancestors came from, because I don't. I'm not gonna lie to you and sit here and pretend like I do. But being able to like see that and see what the different regions are, and maybe in my mind try to place together possibly where they could have come from, was really important and helpful for me to see. And I also appreciated, as I said, like decisions and laws. For example, I know that we, like right now specifically, the Voting Rights Act is under attack, and to know that that was passed in 1964, I believe, and to have it be dissected now is just kind of showing me how laws impact the way that I live, laws that were passed a long time ago, and even things like before that about like sundown towns, and how now that affects the way that I feel when I'm like outside at night, because I never know what's going to happen. So just the customs and decisions that have been made by the government throughout history and how they've affected Black people and the way they still do is something that I definitely think about the most, and that has impacted me in taking this course and like having to like read and look through all the things that have happened and seeing how it affected Black people at the time, and like whether or not it's been changed or repealed, and whether or not it's still having an impact on us today. And the final question is, what kinds of social and historical topics would I like to see in the syllabus of the online AFAM201 class? I think maybe a background, more of an extensive background in the discrepancies of education would be really important. I know in the last module there was something about it, but I think I would like to see a little more of a across the time that we're teaching about what the differences in education between Black kids and white kids might have been, still is, because it does still exist. I also think maybe a deep dive into media representations, because I know that we watched Ethnic Notions, but maybe having not necessarily an updated version, but maybe comparing some stereotypes that exist now to stereotypes that existed in that documentary, and how they may have changed or how they may be connected would be something that could be super helpful. And I realize this isn't a general history class, but I think maybe examining the ways that African Americans and people of the African diaspora interacted with other groups of people of color throughout the time period that we studied could be really interesting, because there could be some dynamics to unpack there as to like, not necessarily, I mean, yeah, you could talk about slavery and slave owners and who the overseers and all that kind of stuff, but also like maybe discrepancies of land, or what kind of neighborhoods you lived in during the Industrial Revolution, or something like that. So I think that could also be something helpful or beneficial to add to this class. And as far as just like taking this class, I feel like I've learned a lot and it's been really helpful to me. I wish in my heart that I could have taken more AFAM classes. Didn't fit my schedule. I'm sad about it, don't worry. But I really appreciate you trying your best to include so many different types of things and like be creative with the assignments that you give us, and to just, I don't know, do your best as an online professor to like still make the course interactive and fun for everyone. I really appreciate when people care and put enough effort into it to make sure their students are engaged, and also just to like talk to them and meet with them and respond to their emails, all that kind of stuff. I definitely also appreciate that. Had a really great time doing all of these readings, especially listening to some of the like speeches and like watching some of the videos. Really great. So thank you. I really appreciate this. I hope I provided some insight, answers to your questions, all that kind of stuff. So I appreciate it, and have a good one. Thank you.